Welcome to Bitstorm, a comedy game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. I'm Ben Slinger, and with me as always...
Trevor Scott.
Is Trevor Scott. You like... How... You never do that. Never do it that way.
I know. I thought I'd be a bit different just to try and...
You put me right off my game. You just threw me off my rhythm. You're Trevor Scott. And how's it going, Trevor Scott?
I'm feeling all right. A bit tired.
Bit tired after this weekend?
Yes.
So those who are regular listeners will know that we just did the Global Game Jam at AAE in Melbourne. It was a lot of fun, and we came up with a little game, and we will do a post-mortem, which will probably actually come out before this episode. So go check 111.5 or something like that for our game Ghost Home, a little bit of post-mortem on that. But until then, this week, I think we will just continue with some click pitch as per usual. Trevor, do you want to let the listeners know what click pitch is?
Yeah, and I shall do it not in song like we did in our warm-up.
Come on. No, it's okay.
No. We each have a random word generator. On the count of 3, 2, 1, we're going to click refresh, take those words, mash them together, come up with a game idea. Then when it doesn't work, we throw it away and do it all again.
Yeah. So let's do it. 3, 2, 1, click.
Motion.
Tennis.
So it's a VR game.
Oh, VR.
Motion controller.
Oh, okay. I was going somewhere else with that, but that's all right. You pitch your idea first.
Okay. I'm thinking that it's actually, rather than being like a typical tennis game, it's actually like an infinite runner where you're a tennis professional taking out enemies with like tennis racket and...
With your tennis racket?
And basically throwing the ball up and whacking it at enemies. I reckon that would actually be a pretty cool...
All right.
Pretty cool infinite
how about
runner
this,
game.
though?
Well, infinite runner,
cool.
but infinite gameplay, multiple tiles keep going on forever.
Well, so is your tennis player moving forward constantly?
That could add to the difficulty a little bit, that they're continually on like a conveyor belt.
Yeah. Well, no, I was literally thinking that that it is an infinite runner. You are running, but tennis balls are also coming down for some reason, and you have to like hit it at the right time to maybe like forehand it or backhand it to hit the enemies that are in different positions or something, so that you kind of got a bit of strategy around which direction and then a timing aspect as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, what is this tennis player running from or to? What is he attacking?
I kind of like the idea that it's on a conveyor belt rather than running, because you know how bad it is if they take over the motion of you physically moving compared to you sort of sitting in a
sorry, I was taking it away from VR.
I'm still going VR because that would be so
you're
cool
still in
being
VR.
able to actually aim at people. If it's a tennis game,
Okay.
I want to be able to aim a little bit better than the typical.
Right. All right.
Sort
All right.
of
So we'll stick with that
tennis or
idea.
whatever.
We'll stick with that idea then. So it's actual motion controls. Well, okay. How about this then? Because this is sort of my other idea, and this could work in VR. You are playing tennis. You're stationary, or at least maybe room scale, but you're playing tennis on the back of a big like truck, and so part of the thing is that other trucks are like pulling up next to you, and they've got other enemies or other tennis players on there, and you're like rallying back and forth one direction, and then there's an alert that like there's someone else behind you. You got to rally back and forth with them for a while and like get a point. All the while there's maybe other enemies attacking you that you can also like hit the ball to.
So the reason why you got to rally with them is because what you're actually hitting are grenades.
Okay. Yep.
So there's a reason as to why you got to actually rally, and if you don't, then you've got to quickly pick up the grenade and lob it back across.
Lob it back over. Yeah, I like that.
I think there's still tennis balls, but you don't know how many seconds you've got on each grenade. I think it's a something that randomly sort of changes between 3 and 5 seconds.
Yeah, so like you just got to hit them as fast as possible if you miss them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. I like the idea of a tennis game, particularly if it is that they're coming up behind you or in front of you, and I mean you probably need some sort of a heads up or something to know that they're going to be behind you, but having to sort of spin back and forth and whack the grenades back over. That's cool.
I love the idea that if you're like a really accurate sort of player, you can sort of lob the grenade into the open window of the driver, and they just like they start going out of control, and then the whole thing just explodes and takes everyone out.
Yeah, I'm almost getting like a Time Crisis vibe, right? Where it's sort of an on-rails shooter in a way, but all you've got is a fucking tennis racket.
Yeah. I don't know why. Going to real games now, I don't know why someone hasn't come up with like a Time Crisis style game for VR.
Yeah, I know. With the ducking and stuff, like with the getting out of the way.
Just even, it doesn't matter if it's on rails. Like it's one of those things that it almost feels like it'd be perfect to actually be one of those things where people keep on coming out and you got to shoot them and all that sort of stuff. It would actually be awesome. Yeah,
that's true. Like there aren't many just rail shooter. There aren't that many just. Well, I guess there are shooting games. It's like Arizona, Sunshine, and that sort of thing. But
what's that space one?
Space Pirate
from Other Suns.
Oh yeah.
And that's pretty cool. But I'd like a story game, kind of like a Time Crisis, where you've got different sort of things that you're sort of destroying. Like you get the helicopter level where it's sort of shooting down at you and you're sort of having to duck out of the way of everyone. That'd actually be really cool. Someone make that. 3 to 1 click.
Yes. Measuring.
Scarf.
Ooh. Okay, I like the idea of some sort of constantly growing scarf. It could be a la Journey. The scarf has some sort of gameplay mechanic. It's a representation of a mechanic in the game.
Okay. I'm getting this picture of this sort of like 3D platformer where your health is gauged by how long your scarf is.
Yep.
But a lot of the enemy attacks are all about trying to take out your scarf, and it's sort of, I like the idea that your scarf is like trailing behind you, a la like the game Snake. How you gotta be very careful.
It's not necessarily that the scarf represents your health. It's that if your scarf gets cut, you have less health.
Yes.
So it's more the embodiment of your health.
So in going with the whole idea of regenerating health, in your backpack you've got a little gnome that is knitting a scarf continuously. So you get health from picking up more balls of yarn and putting it in your backpack, and then then your gnome has more time to actually knit the health back together. Now, it knits pretty fast.
This could be a Bubsy sequel.
It could be, but actually
he's
unlike
always,
the previous one.
He's always collecting yarn, so we could keep that going and actually have a reason for him to do it this time. Yeah.
What I like about it, though, is the longer the scarf is, the easier it is for people to attack it. So it's sort of like a risk-reward thing of keeping your scarf, at a reasonable length.
Right.
Because the longer it is, as you're running, like people can step on it and stop you from sort of being able to go too far.
Well, I was also thinking that you could have a move where you like spin on the spot and it wraps the scarf around you, which obviously keeps it free from enemies, but also that makes it you heavier. Then you can't jump as high.
Well, I was thinking then it's actually kind of dangerous, a la, Empire Strikes Back, that you could actually wrap it around your legs a couple of times and then you go to take a step and you fall.
Well, how physically accurate are we getting with this scarf? I'm thinking from a mechanical point of view that, like having to protect the scarf through particular moves, like the risk reward of letting it get long and dangle behind you versus wrapping yourself up in it, and maybe you can, only wrap yourself up in half of it or something, and that literally is sort of in between. But also, like having to choose, because you could have like parts of the level where there's like big fucking shredders or something, and if you get the scarf caught in the shredder, it just starts pulling you in. Maybe you've got a move where you can cut your scarf, which will save you from something that might have grabbed onto it, but will also leave you with very little health.
Jeez. That's crazy.
I think there's some cool stuff there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I think so.
What I like is the fact that your whole thing is that this gnome is part of like an ancient civilization, and you're trying to save him by getting him back home. So you're going through like these.
Sounds like something Bubsy would do.
Yeah. Going through all these different sort of places. I'm picturing the sort of enemies. Some have big scissors.
Yep.
Some just want to step on the scarf so that it gets all soiled and all this sort of stuff. You got to be very careful about taking it through mud, because that can actually sort of sully your health a little bit. So it's all about protecting the scarf.
Yeah, okay. You could make it if your scarf is dirtied or gets a bit ragged, then basically that it will take more damage. Like if you actually take a hit, then more of the scarf will fall off than if it was pristine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I don't think it all has to be like cutting based enemies. I think you can just do some more traditional enemies that if you or your scarf get hit, like some of your scarf falls off, and just have it as a more traditional measure of your health like that. Although I guess, I don't know. What happens if you get hit and not your scarf? What happens if Bubsy gets hit and not his giant scarf?
You bleed, and then you bleed onto the scarf, soiling it.
That's how you lose your health. Well, I'm just wondering again, though, like from a strategic point of view, it could be that the scarf is sort of a shield in ways. Like maybe Bubsy is quite fragile. Maybe you can only take one or two direct hits. And so there is a reason for you to do certain things where it's like, oh, this is going to be pretty dangerous, so I'll sacrifice some of the scarf because that's going to, like, you basically use it as a shield. And then you have to pick up more wool to regenerate it or whatever.
Yeah. What I like is later on in the game, you can actually have the scarf become like a weapon as well. Like you tie something to the end of it, and you get it sort of swinging, and do those cool like rope tricks that some people sort of get happening, and being able to launch this thing out and
well, I love that. I think what happens is you eventually get the ability to launch the gnome out, and he grabs onto things. Right, he's sitting there at the end of your scarf anyway, knitting onto it. So, like.
He's at one end of the scarf, whether it's the internal scarf or whether it's the external scarf. He's still knitting a end.
He's knitting an end. But I like the idea that you throw him out and he just grabs onto something and lets you swing across. It gives a little like sound as he takes your weight of a giant fucking
and then
orange
he
cat.
lets go and you can sort of swing him back up into the next one. That'd be cool.
Well, and that'd be interesting too if, like, again, that sort of risk-reward thing. It's like, okay, I can take this swing move with the gnome, but when I get to the other end, he's now on the far end of the scarf. So if I don't, like, do a wrapping up move the gnome is now vulnerable.
Yeah.
And maybe if the gnome gets hit, like, I think it's maybe one of those things where you can find him again in the level or something, but while you don't have him, your health doesn't regenerate, right? Your scarf doesn't regenerate.
Oh, jeez. That's scary.
There are a lot of mechanics in that. I like that a lot. And you know what? It's about time Bubsy came back. Actually, I just read that there's a new one coming out this year, so...
Okay. Read it one quick.
All right.
Swear.
Jam.
Swear
jam.
Every time I think swearing, I keep on going back to Random the Clown from Thimbleweed Park.
Thimbleweed Park, yep.
So I kind of like the idea that it's like his next adventure.
Oh, okay. So it's literally Random the Clown.
Yep.
After the end of Thimbleweed Park.
Which we're not going to give away, but there could be something there.
Or maybe it's a prequel. What's jam? What's jam got to do with it?
That's like the MacGuffin.
This is just the jam.
Yep.
So Random the Clown wants jam. That's the name of the game. Random the Clown wants jam. And that sets up the whole adventure.
Yep.
Alright, so what happens in it? How does he get the jam? What sort of jam does he want? Or is it not actual jam? Maybe he's in a jam. Maybe he wants to jam in a band. Maybe he wants to go to a game jam.
Yeah,
maybe this is just a game jam idea where everyone has to make a game starring Random the Clown.
I got nothing.
All right, 3, 2, 1, click. Sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Cold.
Converter.
A cold converter. That reminded me that I had my fucking air conditioning on, so hopefully there's not too much buzz in the background of the first 20 minutes of this podcast.
You just have to deal with it.
Yeah. Cold converter.
So, when you said cold, I immediately went to fusion.
Okay.
So I started thinking cold fusion and then converter.
Converting, that makes sense.
You're converting the cold fusion energy into something
into
useful.
Electricity. Yep.
So, I like the idea that these scientists have come across like the holy grail of like nuclear
Energy
physics or whatever it is.
Production. Yep.
Where they managed to get cold fusion happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm picturing that you don't play one of the scientists, but you play like a security guard in the building that they're based in.
Yeah. Well, let's just sort of... So the interesting thing about something like cold fusion is just like a huge technological leap sort of far beyond the current technology, right? And what that does to a society. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be related to or at least not initially related to the discovery itself. Maybe this is just a world where all of a sudden we have free energy. And like, what does that mean? Like, what comes out of that? Does it like jumpstart AI technology because all of a sudden we can just like pump as much computing power at something as we want? Does it, does the entire world turn to shit because now nobody cares about conserving anything and we end up on a garbage planet? Both. Maybe it's both.
Yeah, maybe it's both. I just like the idea of like just after someone figures it out, there's like an invasion from like another country who has actually been like bugging the place. So you're in sort of like you're just a normal security guard sort of working at this place, and then you're now having to destroy all these terrorist sort of things? 'Cause we haven't done one of those.
Well, what? This just a first-person shooter.
A first-person shooter that has, some extra connotations, like...
Yeah, like, I guess it's just where can we go with that, right? Like, if it's just a security guard shooting terrorists, then it sort of doesn't even matter why, unless we do delve a bit deeper into the repercussions and the story.
I kind of like the idea that there will be other, like, story points that you're sort of going through, like emails, and you start figuring out that one of the other scientists has actually been leaking all these details to like this other country, which is why they knew when they were getting close to doing it.
So does this new energy source then? I mean, are you thinking first-person shooter, like, or like how does the energy source then affect the gameplay? Is it the weapons that you can get a hold of? Do you sort of have to start, like rigging together weapons that utilize this technology in some way? Like maybe it could be around that. Maybe you like come across an engineer who was working on it, and she starts like building these new weapons for you. Like originally it was just supposed to be for energy production and they were going to save the world, but now it's like, well, we can't let it get into the hands of these terrorists, so we'll build weapons out of it to stop them, because otherwise they're going to build weapons out of it.
But the crazy thing is, she's already saying to build weapons within 2 hours of this technology being discovered. And within an hour and a half of... No, but what I like about that is you can start having questions as to how come she knows so much about this power, and how come she... she's already able to make the weapons harnessing this.
I think she was working on the project, so she understands enough about it to be able to engineer it into things. But yeah, I feel like that could at least create an interesting dynamic, both between you and the engineer, and give you opportunities for as you go along. She's really starting to get a hang of it, and so she starts being able to build more and more powerful weapons. I like the idea of having a scene where, because she's still getting the hang of it, she actually built a weapon that's too powerful, and you just like nearly die from this, fucking cold fusion grenade that she invented.
You fire it out, and it's like it's one of the BFG sort of weapons, and yes, it obliterates everyone in front of you, but it nearly obliterates you as well, and you lose some fingers in it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then for the rest of the game, you've only got 3 fingers in one hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
I do like the idea of harnessing, like that the storyline comes from then harnessing this technology in a way that it wasn't intended to be, but that is now sort of becoming necessary, and doing a bit of like guerrilla warfare and stuff then too. Where you're sort of, then she's building traps, and she's building or you're utilizing other things to sort of sneakily take out these opposing forces.
Oh, what you could actually have, and is basically you've got sort of like her engineering lab is like your base of operations, and it's just this big sort of lab sort of
complex,
complex that you sort of you venture out and you clear and blockade like to a certain point, and then this is your area of attack, and
right?
Then you get
so you're sort of taking over territory. But
at any time that you're out there, you can sort of arm some other people within the area. Like you find some other guards and stuff. But at any time, one of your other areas could be attacked by
an attack. Yeah, that could be cool. So put a bit more of sort of procedural stuff in there, or like systems-based stuff where, as you go, you're unlocking new sections, and maybe each of these new sections. So maybe it's a bit of a kind of like those zombie games where, you unlock this area, so now you've got these resources to take on more engineers or something, or like XCOM kind of thing where you're unlocking sections of the base.
By harnessing more power, you can power more parts of the lab and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And like have weapons for more people and that sort of thing. Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be a fun little aspect to it.
You can go scavenge in like the courtyard area and that sort of stuff, which is, and then you can maybe do some sneaking through vents and all that sort of stuff. Real guerrilla warfare or sneaking behind lines and taking out.
Yeah, well, that could be cool. Again, it could be cool if it's a bit more open world-ish in a way where, or even, I guess, a bit Deus Ex kind of thing, where you've got different ways that you could take out these different sections that the terrorists have taken over. So it's like, all right, you can, because you've fought your way through this one, you've actually got access to a vent, which means for this other section of the lab, if you want, you can go the back way and do it in a sneaky way versus going in the front with more weaponry, that sort of thing. Yeah. That'd be really cool.
This is really cool.
And so when you fight them all off, is the challenge now to not let the government notice that or realize that you've now weaponized this really powerful technology? Or is it just end in cold nuclear war, cold fusion?
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking that if you die in it, then you get the bad ending of the terrorists take it over, and then they're able to use this.
Oh no, I'm thinking about your own government.
Oh yeah, but I'm talking about the bad condition of.
Okay, right.
Of the terrorists take it, they kidnap the engineer, which is what they were really there for as well, because she's really heavily involved in this, and she gets forced to make all these weapons that just steamroll through the Western world, and basically they become the New World Order,
world domination.
But then, what happens if you win? Is people in the United States or wherever this is sort of end up doing something similar on the other side, and it's like, well, is there a way that
I love that idea, actually. I love that idea that the bad ending and the good ending are basically the same. It's just whether it's their country or your country who wipes out the rest of the world and dominates.
Then there's an indifferent one, in which, sort of like...
Is that where you destroy the technology in some way?
Yeah, you destroy the technology in some way / murder the engineer.
Oh, God. Well, maybe she can sacrifice herself or something.
Yeah. And you think that saving her is like the best thing to do, but letting her die early on in the game, takes it a totally different way.
Oh wait, how early on? So is there a version of the game where she can dive right at the beginning, and you have to do the rest of the game with none of the cold fusion technology?
I think so.
Just like the single pistol run or something.
It's sort of like one of the first things is kind of like in how Far Cry do it occasionally, where you can just basically finish the game really, really quickly if you do a certain sequence of things. Well, this sets up a totally different way of running through the game. Basically, you've got no tech other than what you've got in the
real world, stuff that you can scavenge from them, and
so it becomes
that'd be cool.
But that's like the hardcore mode. I like that as
almost a new game plus in a way. I mean, I don't know if anything carries over, so that sort of makes it just an alternate way of going through the game. But you'd have to make it not too easy, because you don't want people to think that that's the whole game because they accidentally got her killed early on.
Yeah, it'd be something that you've got to sort of go out of your way to make sure that she actually does die, I think.
Yeah. You'd have to do something specific, and I like that a lot. Yeah, that's cool.
So pick her up, and then if you turn around 3 times, and then you can shove her off again.
Well, I think it should be story based. Like, I think it should be a choice that you get to make at some point. Like, almost like in that one Wolfenstein game where at the beginning you get to choose who dies, and that affects things throughout the whole next 2 games, basically.
Yeah.
That you can choose to let her die. And I don't know if you literally put a meta warning of if you do this, you will, like, this is the hard mode, basically. This is for advanced gamers only, and you will not have access to any advanced technology or something. But yeah, that it's more of a story-based thing.
Yeah. You make her really endearing to people, and they really want to save her and all this sort of stuff. And
yeah, well, we don't want to fridge her in the main story. I think the main story is, obviously with her as a companion and a character and helping you out along the way. But it would be interesting to set up a version where, or maybe rather than killing her, maybe at the beginning she's really unsure because she doesn't want our government to get hold of it either. Maybe she defects. Maybe that's the alternate hard version. And then all the bad guys, all the guys that you're fighting have the technology that otherwise you would have had.
So then, it sort of starts off that she's the person that everyone sort of really likes in the game, but if you berate her a few times during this time, then she basically knocks you unconscious and runs away.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it could be just a really interesting... I think it's even just through discussions with her. Maybe there's some like dialogue trees and stuff early on where, and I think it's fairly, I think again, you want the main path to be that she's with you because that's actually the main chunk of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, if you do a very specific set of dialogue choices where it's made very clear that you're sort of pushing her away or trying to convince her that she should go to the other side, then she does, and it affects the game for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And I think you're still obviously then taking over parts of the base and bringing on other people that you find to defend certain areas and stuff. It's just literally the level of technology and the types of weapons you have access to.
3, 2, 1, click.
Yep. Disorder.
Domain
disorder. I can't think of anything but like the internet and domain names. That's not interesting.
Domain, a taxonomic subdivision larger than a kingdom. Okay, so I'm picturing that it's in like a fantasy land.
All right.
What was your word, sorry?
It was disorder.
Disorder. Okay. So I'm picturing in this like fantasy land, I'm just wondering whether you're playing like this domains like wizard or fighter or knight or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're having to deal with like disorder that's happening within the domain. So it sort of starts off as a typical sort of yep.
She's some sort of peacekeeper in a fantasy world in this kingdom.
Domain. Larger than a kingdom.
Oh, whatever. We just use it as area of land.
Yeah.
That's fine. So you need to take care of your domain in some way. What sort of gameplay are we thinking is this? I guess where's the disorder coming from? Is it that you're brought into this domain to clean things up because things have just got totally out of hand? There's like a revolution going on or something.
Yeah, I think maybe the previous peacekeeper was corrupt, and so you've been brought in to sort of
clean up the streets.
But in the streets, you've got like this rebel band of magic users that are like burning down shops and all this sort of stuff.
All right. I like the idea that this is a police procedural sort of thing, but in a fantasy land.
Yeah.
So you literally you've got your beat, and you have if you see someone setting off illegal magic, then you go like chase them down. Do you think so? Are you magic yourself, or it might be more interesting if
I kind of like the idea that you're not.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Is your trusty sword, and
so you're a knight or something. You're a fighter.
I But
Although
I like the idea of like bike clubs or mafia sort of things being being magic users. So they're roughing up shopkeepers and threatening to burn them down unless they pay them protection money.
Totally. I mean, they're more powerful, right? They've got the power and they're using it for, to intimidate people. So it's organized crime and it's all the fucking wizards.
Yeah. And
warlocks,
like they're also like
magic,
the motorcycle gangs on their magic carpet. Sort of. They're all sort of flying down the street.
You just see a gang of them coming down the street.
Yep,
oh
just like God. A meter off the ground on their magic carpet. Just
fucking
stealing apples
jackets.
and just what are you going to do about it? Eat.
Okay, yeah, all right. So that's. I think that sets up the world pretty nicely.
Okay, so
what's the sort of main gist then? Like, what's the sort of main core narrative?
You and your sidekick have to. You get brought into the town to help clean up things.
Yep.
What your sidekick is basically a rogue. So they can sort of. They've got like thieves' tools and that sort of stuff that they can break in, and you're running sort of again. You do things not necessarily the best way that you
by
could. By the book.
Yeah, so it's like, probable cause. I saw some fire in there. It's obviously a magic user. Break in, little rogue buddy. And it's just like, there's a candle inside. And you knew it was a candle.
Yeah. But probable cause. Oh, we're here. Oh, this is an unregistered spell book. No, just being able to, sort of discuss different sort of murders and even people being thieved and all this sort of stuff.
Well, and there's got to be like drug trade, right?
Yeah,
of magical drugs of some sort.
Yeah,
potions, tinctures.
Yeah, drugs. Hallucinogens and all that
bombs.
Sort of stuff.
Rub this on your eyelids and blink 7 times, and you'll be transported to a wonderful psychedelic place. And of course, in this world, that means literally transported. They disappear, and they may or may not come back. It depends if the LSD worms get them or not.
So yeah, I'm liking the idea of this police procedural. Having to go and deal with all these different things, just being able to do some beat sort of stuff and maybe chase down some magic carpet users and this sort of stuff. But the overarching story could be, the actual leader of these magic users and this mafia that you're sort of going after is like the Grand Vizier. He's like the he's sort of helping you in the start, sort of like a Bioshock 1, Atlas being sort of like the good guy that turns out to be not necessarily the best
you think
sort of
so?
guy.
He's actually in a position of power in the government, as it were. In the monarchy.
He's brought you in to try and fix this up, but he's brought you in because really in your last town you were incompetent and you just made things easier for people to run right.
And so maybe it's the fact that you and your partner, like this can be a real buddy cop thing where it's sort of being put together with your partner. You end up making a really good team.
Yeah.
And I don't think the main character was necessarily incompetent. I think the Grand Vizier thinks that they were incompetent.
Yeah.
But it's just there were sort of circumstances in their last town that sort of everyone was against them and they couldn't get anything done.
Yeah.
And then, being brought here, they don't have that same sort of things keep setting them back. And then also when teaming up with this rogue, they just happen to make this really effective team and start cleaning everything up when they really weren't supposed to.
So I like this idea that this area consists of like the main like plaza, which has all your sort of stalls and that sort of stuff, and there's a bit of crime happening there. Then you've got like the outskirts of the town where there's it's pretty much where beggars are lining the streets and that sort of stuff. But you've also got like houses. Then it sort of goes out into like fields where you got farms and stuff.
Yeah.
But then the further out that you go, there's also sort of like, I'm picturing caves and that sort of a cave system sort of out there.
So is this like open world, like GTA style?
Well, open world, like Skyrim style, I'm thinking. Like that sort of.
Well, I guess either way. I was thinking GTA style just in the way that GTA games and like Red Dead Redemption 2 and stuff they're really good at making it feel like the world's alive and that there's stuff going on all the time. So I quite like the idea of being this fucking night cop. being this night rider in this town with your sidekick Kit.
What I like about it is that your rogue buddy just rides on your back piggyback style the whole time, and that's why it's Knight Rider.
I think your buddy should be called Kit.
No, I was thinking the knight should be called Kit because the buddy's riding Knight.
Oh God, maybe. All right. I was thinking that the knight should be a woman, but Kit works for a woman.
Yeah,
and then the rogue is.
I'm thinking like a goblin or a
Michael Knight. Yeah, I think some sort of small creature
or a halfling. Halfling rogue.
A halfling rogue. Sure. I don't think they're always on the back, but I think in a pinch, if you start running or something, they like jump on your back. It's kind of like in God of War where your boy will climb on your back when you climb on things when it's appropriate.
Yep.
Yeah, but I like that idea of it being sort of an open worldish sort of thing.
There's like story missions. There's like random encounters that can sort of happen.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is I'd like to move it away though from the traditional GTA and even Skyrim method of like to start the next story mission, find this spot on your map. I'd like it if you could come up with a way where it sort of happens more naturally and you kind of get pulled into a story mission.
Yeah, I like the idea that it's sort of like when the next story mission is ready to happen, someone will come find you, sort of thing. Like you could be out doing some side quests.
Like depending on the mission, it could be dynamic enough that it's like a fucking horde of a gang of wizard bikers goes past and there's another couple of knights behind them and they're just like, fucking come on, we need backup.
And that's actually the start of the next mission.
And that's actually the start of the next mission. And I guess technically you could ignore it. And if you do, it just happens again later. Or maybe like each mission could even have just a few different ways that it could kind of draw you into it.
Yeah.
But I like that being a bit more in the world. If you didn't
actually go along with the knights, you meet up with like one or two of the knights that were in that fight later on and they go, there's something bad happening in this area.
Yeah, they got away.
Reckon you should
you can maybe seek it out then.
Yeah. And I'm liking the idea that the world sort of continues on, and if you're not in an area when something's happening, then you may hear about it from other people.
It'd depend how important a story mission it was. Like, I think you could have sort of optional story missions like that where it was just, well, you didn't take the bait the couple of times that we put it in front of you, so now it's just something that happened without you. But obviously the main story missions
burnt down because you didn't take care of that arsonist, like back when you could have. Like, you let him go past, even though he was talking about setting fire to these three stalls, including
exactly. And look, I know you were busy like killing rabbits for that fetch quest, but
just the idea that there's so many things that going on, like. Anytime that you go back to see what's actually going on, there's people putting requests in, like,
well, that's it. I think
this crime, and you've always got something that you could be looking into.
I think you've got basically your like precinct that you can go to, and like you got the big stables, and it's this huge building, and they've got like pigeons coming in all the time with crime reports.
But also what I love is that the Grand Vizier
riders.
is like part and parcel of this thing. So anytime that, you haven't been doing something, he'll appear, just a floating head in front of you and tell you.
Right, yeah.
Tell you, you need to come back and do some paperwork, or
and that could be good. That could be a
fill
good way
out some
to
parchments.
that could be definitely a good way to sort of get the character back on track. I feel like
you're getting behind on your parchments.
You're getting behind on your TPS parchments. Okay, you're gonna have to come in on Saturday. All right. 3, 2, 1, click. I like that one.
I love it. I love that one a lot.
Q.
Cloud.
A cloud Q. A queue of clouds.
Is it Q as in with a Q? Or is it Q as in C-U-E?
Sorry, no. Q-U-E-U-E. So a line of some sort. So I was kind of thinking about either... Do you know that? I think it's a Pixar short where there's like the cloud that they like make the babies and give them to the storks.
Yep.
I was kind of wondering if it could be something like that. Maybe not with necessarily anthropomorphic clouds like that building the babies, but something to do with storks delivering babies, and they have to like. Maybe the clouds are where they're made. Maybe there's like a baby. Well, I mean, kind of like the movie Storks as well. There's like a baby factory up in the clouds, and that's where they get the babies to deliver to people. I'd be interested. I'd be interested in developing the lore around if storks deliver babies, what is happening in the uterus of the mother that she's still like for 9 months grows bigger and bigger until the baby comes to the door, until the stork comes to the door with the baby. She just deflates as the stork gets there. Like it's some sort of signal thing. It's like the woman is filling up with a certain type of gas that she's constantly letting it out, and that's like signaling to the storks that a baby is going to be required.
I'm thinking that they've got teleportation technology that can basically, teleport the baby into the stomach, so they've still got to give birth.
They still have to give birth, but the stork like knocks on the door, is like, "Here's your baby. Now it's in you."
What was in me before?
Push it out.
This air cushion that
baby dust, baby gas.
It's actually not the stork. They've just been
what actually happens is human women. What actually happens is human women give birth to storks, and in return they get a human baby from the stork population, who have a machine that builds them out of clouds.
So all humans are actually cloud descendants.
Yeah, all humans are actually cloud babies, and anytime you see a pregnant woman, there's a bird in her. So what's the gameplay? Is it just like a simple arcadey game where you're a stork trying to dodge things to get a baby there? But somehow there's this like weird backstory that makes its way out.
I know. I kind of like the. What's in my head at the moment is that Untitled Burb game from Game Jam.
All right.
Seeing the bird fly. I'm picturing in the outback. Basically, a stork comes down and has like the package, and sort of lost, and has to talk to different animals to try and work out where the hell it is to try and get to the location. And
have you seen a large woman leaking baby gas?
with a squawking stomach.
She went that away.
So yeah, I'm liking this idea of this like open world adventure that it's more about getting the baby to the place, but it's sort of relaxing as you go as well. Like it's not
okay, so it's not necessarily
more about the journey and the friends that the bird makes along the way.
Oh, that could be interesting. Just kind of more of a chill vibe.
Yeah.
Just soaring over interesting scenery. Whoops, dropped the baby. Better catch.
Well, having different conversations, but if you try to talk in midair, then, the baby's going to fall out of the beak.
Well, I wonder if there's sort of some sort of survival-ish aspects where, like, you have to come down and get food or water and that's also when you kind of run into people at the different stops. Maybe it's a bit of a procedurally generated, like, roguelike journey across a large, multiple biomes randomly generated.
Yeah, the reason why I like the Outback is just the, you could have little canyons and that sort of stuff that you can sort of go through and follow along like a river in the desert sort of thing. That
oh yeah, there's definitely good scenery. You could do that. I mean, yeah, you could make the whole thing in the Outback. There's certainly enough land out there to have a long journey or a game's worth of a journey.
Yeah.
But again, so maybe it is that you see like, oh, there's a little cluster of trees down there. Like maybe I can find some food. Or yeah, there's a river snaking through. And you find other animals like feeding and drinking there. Talk to them, find your way.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
could be cool. I do like the idea of just having to navigate via landmarks. So they're like, yeah, okay, you see that like tall mountain over that way, right way in the distance, just head towards that until you hit, this fork in this river or something. And
then when you hit that, go directly in between the two forks of the river, like fly along.
Yeah, just head straight so that you keep the two sides of the river on even distance from you for until you get to this spot. And I think if you get lost, again, you can just kind of algorithmically, if you come down, like they'll give you new directions to get you back on track based on other landmarks and stuff. That could be really interesting.
Yeah, chill game, flying.
Yeah,
with the Outback through John Flick.
All right, Carbon.
Believing
in Carbon.
Okay.
Actually, what this made me think of was like charcoal and like charcoal drawings of some kind. Whether that's like the art style or whether it's something about, well, I mean, really what believing made me think of some sort of like bringing charcoal drawings to life or something, but I don't necessarily know if that's the direction we want to go. But yeah, just like, I like the aesthetic of, brushed charcoal drawings.
Whereas for some reason, my mind went to an alien world in which it's all silicon-based life.
Mm-hmm.
And on their periodic table, carbon doesn't exist.
They somehow haven't discovered carbon.
Yeah, it doesn't actually exist on their planet. Like, basically, I think what carbon's, how many sort of atoms? So
it's because it's not 8, is it? Isn't that that's oxygen, I think.
I keep on getting 7 in my head, but I don't think that's it.
Well, no, because it's a stable. It is. No, that's where is it?
13.
6. No, what? No, 13's aluminium.
6. No.
6. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, on their periodic table it goes 5, 7. So,
And they never thought to fill in the gap
well, they're like
between boron and nitrogen.
so basically they've got people who say, well, if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 onwards, it's like there has to be a 6, and it's like we're going to call it carbon. We think that it should exist. It doesn't appear on this planet, and it's all about the people don't believe that carbon exists.
It's like the carbonists versus the non-carbonists.
So that's setting up this area, this world.
Sure.
A person from our world gets marooned on this planet, and happens to come across a person who who is a carbon believist or carbon believer, and they find out, hang on, this person is actually made of carbon. Oh my god, we've got to get this to the highest level of government. But then you've got all the people who,
who want to suppress the idea of it.
Yeah, through the fact that they believe silicon is life and all this sort of stuff. Carbon, cannot exist.
Yeah. Okay.
I kind of like the idea that they call these things like silly names. So it's not hydrogen or helium, and
they've got all their
oxygen.
own names for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I like that idea. Well, and I like that idea because you could have puzzles then based on how much you've managed to pick up of their replacement terms for the different elements in the periodic table.
Yeah.
That could be cool. So just to be different, I'm kind of picturing this as a bit of an RPG, like an isometric RPG.
Okay. Yep.
Like a bit of a, what's the Tides of Numenera, or the recent ones? No, what's the other? I fucking kickstarted them. I can't remember. Yeah, exactly, yeah. That could be interesting. Just doing it a bit differently there and really creating these large worlds with interesting alien species and then, as you go through, you're sort of solving puzzles and it's a lot of dialogue-based stuff and maybe kind of role-playing stuff as you learn about this world and your companions who are sort of trying to get you safely to the lead scientists or something to prove that carbon exists.
I'm picturing that this character is actually in like a spacesuit the entire time.
The whole time, okay.
Because they can't breathe the atmosphere because it's not like nitrogen rich or anything like that, and he expels carbon dioxide and it reacts badly with the whole thing because obviously they don't expel that because they don't breathe oxygen either. So
and they don't have any carbon, so it's going to start reacting with things.
And causing lots of issues.
I like the idea of, because I think obviously
they don't have fire either. Like their whole thing comes from like a.
Yeah, I guess. Would silicon based stuff burn? I don't know enough about fucking biochemistry. But what I was thinking is because I think like astronomically it would be quite like impossible to find a planet naturally that had no carbon. So I think you'd have to come up with some sort of, like maybe they're in the middle of like a nebula or something that manages to filter out all the carbon somehow. Yeah. Like it all, like whatever this nebula is made of, it bonds with the carbon, which I'm pretty sure carbon is stable, so it wouldn't. But like whatever, it strips an electron off the carbon and bonds with it. Yeah. It's so that it just has never made it through to this solar system. Just to sort of have a conceit as to how this could even happen. But yeah, like, and that's actually a good reason why you'd be exploring it as well, right? Like, you've never been able to.
Weird.
Yeah, you've never been able to see inside this nebula, this dust cloud, and you finally make your way through and land on this planet and, find this silicon-based life.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. I reckon we've got time for one more.
Yeah. Jolly.
Hut.
Hut? H-U-T?
Yes.
The Jolly Hut. I like the idea of that being a name of a place. This whole game is set around the Jolly Hut.
Yep.
Maybe it's a a restaurant or...
No, it's that place in the woods where all those murders were committed.
Don't go to the Jolly Hut. You'll never come back. Nobody ever comes back from the Jolly Hut.
So I'm imagining it's actually called the Jolly Hut because it was owned by this guy by the name of Paul Jolly. And he was a mass murderer who killed all these people at this hut. What actually happens is...
So maybe you're a reporter, like visiting the town or something?
It's a reporter sort of being told about, oh yeah, never go out to the Jolly Hut in the middle of the night. Like, it's...
Yeah. I like the idea of, it's a bit of a trope, but I like the idea of a reporter, like, they're heading somewhere important for some big story.
Yeah.
And they need to stay somewhere, and they just stop off at this small town. But, like, they hear from the person at the motel or whatever, like, oh yeah, but make sure you don't go up to the Jolly Hut, like, or it's like the 10th anniversary of the Jolly Hut killings or something. The Jolly Killings. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then that just, like, captures their imagination, and they just, like, put off this other story, and they stay here because they want to investigate this thing because they've never heard of it before, and it's really, and yeah, and it goes from there, and it's all about kind of starting to learn about this town, and obviously eventually unraveling the mystery around it, and
yeah,
that could be really cool.
I always really like mysteries in which someone comes into it not knowing anything and just getting freaked out by some weird acting locals and that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
it's
well,
really
it works
tropish,
well. It is tropey, but I feel like it hasn't been done much in games.
No, not at all.
I feel maybe a little bit of Alan Wake kind of has a bit of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that works well for games as well, is like coming in not knowing anything about it. As the gamer, that's the same thing. So you sort of relating to the character and finding things out at the same time they are.
So I think you sort of get taken up there by like a park ranger or something like that in the middle of the day.
Yeah, in the middle of the day, yeah.
And you get to look around it a bit, and you sort of, it's now appearing on your map that you can sort of go between the locations, and you can go ask questions of different people. Like there's the one victim who got away, and all this sort of stuff. So you can, and they're in maybe the mental asylum or something like that. That you've got to sort of work out how to get in touch with these people, and the more stuff that you find out about it, the more questions you can actually ask, and sort of just go down like a investigative journalist sort of route. But then,
so you're thinking kind of point and clicky?
Yeah, kind of point and clicky, but almost FMV like as well. Like I'm liking the idea of it being sort of more realistic, like photorealistic graphics. Not much happening. Like I'm picturing the first time CD-ROMs ever came out. Like they all went for these really dodgy FMV games, and this just feels like the perfect FMV. Could even be like a version of Phantasmagoria sort of thing.
So you're thinking, yeah, okay. I mean, you could go FMV, or you could just make it one of these kind of realistic style, almost just an interactive interactive story in a way where there are a few branching narratives, but it's mostly kind of just putting the pieces together to find the next part of the story. Relatively simple adventure gaming stuff. To sort of move the story forward.
I don't think this should be inventory puzzles. I think it should be more clue puzzles.
Dialogue, like you've got your notepad.
You've got your
laptop or something
that you can basically highlight certain things and make notes of certain things.
Ooh, I like that. Like a bit of Orwell or a bit of Papers, Please style thing where it's like linking pieces of information that you've found out. Yeah, that'd be cool to have to actually physically realize, oh, these things are related, and that gives you like a new section in your notebook or whatever.
So if you're going through, say, the Jolly Hut, and you have a look at the fireplace, and you see like a poker that's a bit dirty and that sort of stuff, but you see one with blood on it, you can sort of make a note in your notepad that. I
like the idea that maybe you have to take photos as well. Like, that you really have to get into the habit of taking photos of anything interesting. And if it's something, then, like, automatically the game will, like, put a note on it, to say, like, oh, yeah, bloody poker with in the Jolly Hut. The time the photo was taken, this sort of thing.
The blood looks fresh. That sort of stuff.
Yeah, maybe. Give you a bit of hint. Well, and I kind of like the idea of time-based events then too, where like you take a photo of that, but then you come back later and it's gone. Or you find it somewhere else or something. It's like, so you at least know someone else has been there between the times that you took these two photos, then you've got that documented, and having to use that as a clue.
What do you think about this idea of this whole community is actually on like an island? So you basically got this entire island that it consists of like this town, a lighthouse on one side, in the middle of these woods. There's like this one hut, and then there's like this sort of public sort of national park or something like that. Mm-hmm. But basically, you anywhere within this whole island you can sort of go round. But the reason why you're being brought to the island is because the only way to get to this place that you're trying to get to is like this ferry that only leaves from this island. So the reason why you went to this island is because there's another ferry that leads on to the place that you were trying to get to originally. But it's the only place that actually...
you have to go via this island.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But then, while you're there, you hear these stories about the Jolly Hut and something that happened many years ago, and it's coming up on the 10th anniversary, and it's bringing up all these ideas as to, you can go talk to the ranger, you can go talk to the lighthouse keeper and find out what, maybe his son was involved in this somehow, and, raise the alarm about, who it was actually doing these murders, and you can just learn some more stuff from the locals.
Yeah, I know. I think there's a lot there, and I do like the idea of kind of leaning into some of those tropes. But, something that hasn't been done in games that often, and utilizing them a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That is.
All right. Well, I think we will finish it up there for this episode of Bitstorm. If you want to find us online, the best place to go is podchaser.com/Bitstorm. You can get to all of our links in our YouTube channel and iTunes and all the other stuff. Our creator pages are on there, so you can see shows that we've guested on. It's a fantastic service built by a very handsome man.
Yeah, well, Ryan is pretty handsome.
Yeah, who else would have?
So we'd like to thank and plug all our friends at the AGP and the Australasian Gaming Podcast Network. Search for #AGPN or AGP Network on Twitter, or search for the Australasian Gaming Podcast Network on Facebook.
Yeah, and finally, very cool stuff coming from AGPN soon.
Oh yeah, very cool.
Happy to be involved with.
We're privy to some stuff that's coming. Stay tuned to the podcast channel. I'd like to finally thank Kuradust, our band, for the song Mount Defiance off of the album Containment Failure, for graciously allowing us to use it every single week.
That's it. So thank you again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. I'm Ben Slinger.
I'm Trevor Scott.
And I'm off to the Jolly Hut.
Don't get murdered.